The June 14th meeting of the Urbana Free Library Board of Trustees will come to order. We have a roll call vote. I mean, a roll call, not vote.
Here.
Anna?
Here.
Michael?
Here.
Okay, what's wrong, Jeff? I just put out a name, you call it.
Here we go.
Chris? Yeah,
Yes.
I don't see him. I have a hard time with names. Mark?
Here.
Beth? Here. Bill?
Are there any additions, corrections, or modifications to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go on to the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Do we have a call for an executive session? Beth?
Yes.
Is there, do I need a second for the call?
No, when we
Okay,
get to it.
just that we'll have it, okay. Public comment. Do we have any public that want to comment? Yes.
Be glad that this is not the Champaign County Board. They have to account for 3 deaths in the county jail. And the room is half county board members and half protesters.
I'm thankful.
Yes. Another less dolorous announcement. The next Golden Harbor dinner is 2 weeks from tomorrow on the 29th. And Mr. Brown can speak to that.
Okay. Okay, we're ready for some presentations. Mr. Martin, our next door neighbor.
Thank you, yes. Well, and this time, I am coming not as your Champaign Public Library next door neighbor, but as your university next door
Right.
neighbor. So just to make sure we know which hat I'm wearing.
I accused him of spying, so.
Yes, I am not spying, I'm a university person. I'm in my other persona. So I'm here to talk a little bit about the Digital Literacy for All grant that we received from the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. This is the second grant that we have used funds from to work here at the Urbana Free Library, and in particular with the Teen Open Lab. The first time we got funding for that grant was 3 years ago, and it allowed us to help begin the Teen Open Lab itself. Bought the laptops, a lot of the starting equipment, and provided a staff person. This time we were able to supplement additional equipment, plus also bring in a staff person again to help with the program to move it forward. The grants, as all grants are written for program officers who have to read those and decide that they want ours. And so it's great of you to allow me to come here and kind of make English sense of grantees in the description of that. The thing that we've been looking at the university within the Center for Digital Inclusion, through which we work, and have been very pleased to work with the Urbana Free Library on, is to think about new ways to do digital literacy. Our understanding of digital literacy is growing by leaps and bounds. A lot of the early digital literacy training, especially for those who are underserved, it came out of the Digital Divide framework. And it was really about mostly basic economic training development, how to use a keyboard, how to use a mouse, how to use a word processor. And really is inadequate to capture how we work with digital technologies. I was at a conference yesterday, and it was on digital literacy, and there were 55 of us that came together to think through what digital literacy is. And it's much more than just technical skills, although it hasn't stopped being that. It's also about things like, how do you define problems in a way that you can use digital technologies to solve them? And so it's some thinking that comes out of computational thinking, computer science, and it's bringing that to a broader arena. It's thinking through questions like, how do you communicate, how do you collaborate together? It's helping people to realize that failing is not only not bad, it's also something that you should expect and embrace, because it really becomes a launch pad for doing things better. But these are hard concepts right now, we find, even amongst my master's students, let alone teens and others. So we hear things like digital natives, and they're so used to technology, but they're used to really being entertained by technology. And our grant was really, how do we take it past that? How do we make it this broader concept of what it means to be digital literate? How do they use it to do effective information seeking, so that it's really about looking for the right information, judging the quality of that information, turning that into knowledge that can inform how to act. That's a tricky thing to figure out how to teach. And it's a tricky thing to figure out how to teach to more than just those tracked in this arena. And so the digital literacy for all learners is really exploring how do we take those who traditionally have been excluded. Girls, minorities often aren't included in these areas, and how do we also bring it into that arena? So the Urbana Free Library was a perfect place to test this. Joel and Amber before she left, and now Lauren, the shelvers here, the whole team has been so amazing to work with and to think through these problems with. Part of the reason I was invited to Chicago was because of the collaborative efforts I have with the staff that's here at the Urbana Free Library, and the things we learn together, and then I get to go share around. I think of Naomi. As a teen, she was doing artistic works, and she wanted to start doing that through a direct digital format instead of having to scan it in. And she asked for graphic pads. And the staff here said, we have no clue how to use it. She said, I'll figure it out and I'll help others to learn. And she did. And she started helping others to learn. She had a creative way. I loved coming in and watching her, where she would draw on a giant Post-it pad and teach others how to do drawing there first. Then she would show them how to do it on the graphics tablet. She developed that herself. She turned 18. She wasn't supposed to be in the space anymore. She said, I don't want to leave. And they said, why should you be a volunteer and help teach others, continue to teach others? And she said, I don't know how to teach. And they were able to say, you've been teaching all along. And she continues to be a volunteer and involved in these sorts of things. How we continue to do that, how we learn how to do that, is part of the challenge that we continue to look at for the Center for Digital Inclusion, and the partnership we have with the Urbana Free Library we've had for years now has been so instrumental in helping to not only learn how to serve those here at Urbana better, but it's also how to take this forward. And it's helping others to come to see this exciting, important opportunity libraries have to provide to their community that goes beyond books. It starts at books, but it provides all of these other components so that it really is about helping to build a better community. And I think Naomi's story shows that exactly. So that's the basics of what we set out with the grant, and I think we were very successful in spite of the grant having to be terminated 3 months early at a moment's notice, because the state said we're withdrawing funds. I got an email said, as effective immediately, you can't spend any more money and you have to return everything that is unspent. We were able to find a little bit of funds to at least help Kim Naples, who was working here. The Center for Digital Inclusion found some funds to let her work through the end of the spring. But it meant we couldn't do some of the final reports, final evaluation sorts of things that we had planned for that last quarter. So we don't have all the reports that we would have liked, but from everything that we were seeing, and even some of the stories that we did see, there's a website, dl4all.illinois.edu, and if you go to that, you can see some of the stories and include stories from the Urbana Free Library. It's just been amazing. It's a great partnership, and I appreciate the chance to come tell you about it a bit, and happy to answer any questions you have.
Were we the only teen lab?
So we worked with Champaign Public Library. This is the first time the doors opened at the Champaign Public Library for us to work with them. The Urbana Free Library has been out front in all of this, and so it was actually a really good chance. Sarah Butt, who had worked here as a volunteer, migrated over to Champaign Public Library to help start the program there this year. But they're at a much more of an infancy state and still getting their feet wet in this. We also worked at the Urbana Neighborhood Connection Center, and actually Joel and Amber went over there, did a little bit, and some of the teens came over here and did some things, so it's been a really great collaboration. And then we also worked at Kenwood Elementary School, so that wasn't a teen space, it was actually a elementary school space to explore this as well.
Do you have interest from any of the other local libraries, say like Mohammed or Rantoul, or, I mean, libraries seem to be a natural space?
Bits and pieces, the problem is really the funding. And so I think some libraries haven't even caught the vision yet, that the libraries are the natural space for this. And even as they get that vision, there's a lot of the funding issues for getting started. But I think what this demonstrated, and is quite a remarkable model for this. Actually, Fred Schlipp talks nationally about how remarkable it is that everything fits in a closet and then can roll out. And what started as kind of this is the only way we can make it happen, has turned into a model for how to be a team-driven space. Because while the shelvers are often helping to set things up and providing basic support, there's also sometimes teens who are lining up outside the door saying, can we help set up? And then they might say, could we set up this station today instead of that one? Or partway through the afternoon, they'll say, you know what, no one's using the station and we'd like that station. Could we swap them around? And so it's actually turned out to be a feature in how to do more team-driven space like this. But it still comes with a cost, even if it's lower through some of this flexibility. Yes.
Since our state is in such a god-awful mess and we can't rely on it or them, are there any national foundations that might be turned to for some financial support?
As part of my goal yesterday at that meeting, there were 6 or 7 funders there, and then another 45 of us presenting on ideas, and so including Microsoft was there, Comcast was there, and they have different funding mechanisms for this sort of thing. The Joyce Foundation is primarily Chicago, but Grand Victoria is a new one foundation that I'd never heard of. It's based with the Elgin Casino, but they've started a foundation with some funds to do some of these sorts of things. And it seems very consistent with what we're doing. And so there's hope for that, but there also seems to be real potential in community because of Research Park, because of the types of businesses that we have, the types of entrepreneurs that are around, that there's also possibilities, I think, ongoing for bringing in some funding through some of that for direct purchases. They aren't generally going to cover staffing issues, but they might say, we want to bring in this equipment, or we want to do this type of program, or do you want to sponsor that?
The Community Foundation would be also a good place to turn to for equipment, not staffing, but equipment.
And I think part of, and I'll span roles right now, I think part of our challenge as board members is also to sell this vision of libraries. When I was at that meeting yesterday, it was amazing how many people said this is so natural a thing for libraries to do. But then there were others who said, I had never thought of that. And I think continuing to expand that, because ultimately we really are about information, seeking knowledge creation, informed, effective action, and to be really community-centered in all of that. And I think libraries are so strong, and these digital technologies are important, but I think that's also why it's important to have this more expansive understanding of what digital literacy is, and a more inclusive understanding that brings in a broader representation of the community.
Any other questions for Martin? Thank you very much for coming.
Sure thing, thank you. I'll go through the rest of the presentations, then I'll sneak out so I don't look like a spy.
I don't know. Anka, you have a report.
Yeah, just a few things to share with you. Celeste asked me to give a little bit more information, and I had shared this with you before, that over the last almost 4 months, I've been conducting oral histories with members of both the League of Women Voters and the Illinois Nurses Association. So far conducted 15 oral histories, and they're each about an hour. I've had some wonderful help from members of the Illinois Nurses Association and the League of Women Voters. Some of the people I've interviewed, I'm sure some of you will recognize. For the Illinois Nurses Association, we've interviewed Charlotte Golden, Donna Stanner, Eunice Mum, Janet Anderson, Lilia Peters, Shirley Walker, and Violet Schroeder. And for the League of Women Voters, I interviewed the Gillaroods, Mary Blair, Jane Anderson, because she both is an INA and a League of Women Voter mover and shaker, Louise Allen, and Sherry DeLong. We also had the pleasure of the League project of working with, and I apologize because I don't know her name, a PhD candidate in the School of Urban Planning who was very interested in the many housing studies that the League conducted over the years, especially in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and their phenomenal studies, primarily of North Champaign and the African American community, and they're really standalone. I mean, there's no equivalent in the community of the reports. And so this student approached us to see if I'd be willing to bring several of these League women together to talk about their experience on these housing studies, and just talk about the reflection of what that brought to their lives. I think with both of these opportunities, I've had the opportunity, these interviews, I've had the opportunity to listen to the story of some phenomenal women who have done amazing work in this community. They've talked about leadership opportunities, the strength in numbers that they gained by joining the League or the Illinois Nurses Association. Especially with the League, I think the story that came through for a number of the interviewees was many of them came to this community highly educated, ready to start, a career at the university. Unfortunately, so did their husbands. One of them had to go because the nepotism rules at the university were such that there was no spouse to be working. So these women who had incredible education and experience and organizational skills and experience looked into the community and found ways to organize and to become activists and do some incredible work. So that's one thing I certainly came away with. And then with the Illinois Nurses Association, I think we focused on the history of nursing in the community, but specifically also the institutions that employed nurses, especially the history of Burnham Hospital, history of Mercy Hospital, and the various healthcare providers and services in the area, especially public health and public health services. That also intersected with the League because it also discussed especially Burnham's role, because it was the only public hospital, to serve a very broad community and being a very essential service point for a lot of people, and the effect it had in the community when it closed. So anyway, I'm not quite done yet. There are probably about another 2 or 3 oral histories we are finishing. We will then start, we haven't started cataloging them. Currently they are in WAV files, so these are raw audio files. We will convert them to JPEG files, and they'll be available on our website along with our other oral histories. Hopefully we'll have a time also where we'll be able to transcribe them. But again, those are all different steps that hopefully we will take in the coming year. But again, these are wonderful additions to the collection. And also, I should say, we have, although the University Archives has some of the League's records, we also have a portion of the League's records here at the Champaign County Historical Archives. And Violet Schroeder served as the archivist and historian for the Illinois Nurses Association. and she donated her entire collection to us. It's about maybe about 15 cubic feet of records of the Illinois Nurses Association. And I should say, one of the stories that was also specifically addressed, that was of interest, is to discuss the impact of the strike, because that is what really brought the Illinois Nurses Association to the forefront of the community in the collective bargaining portion of the INA, because that is not its only function. It caused a lot of controversy. It caused a lot of tension. It gave these women an incredible opportunity to fight for their rights and their representation, but some really interesting stories. So I'm happy to be able to share them with you and will in the future. Now, the other great piece was that archive staff and the staff and volunteers of the former Chanute Air Museum spent, of course, months this year evaluating and packing items that will become the Chanute collection at the Urbana Free Library. And May 19th, the collection officially made it from Rantoul to Urbana. And I'm going to pass around. So there is now a link under local history and genealogy on the Urbana Free Library website. If you scroll over that tab, there's now a separate link for the Chanute collection. And there are updates, pictures, and I'll just pass these around. These are pictures of the move. This is them in their final resting place. As you know, about over 700 cubic feet of records, including 13 filing cabinets filled with photographs, reports, newspaper clippings, and subject files compiled by the base historian during Chanute Air Force Base's history. Lots of boxes over, altogether there were 450 boxes that were being moved. The weather was perfect. And I do have to do a shout out for two men in the truck who did it for us. They were phenomenal. First of all, they lied. They came with 7 guns. So 7 men in the truck. And they moved 450 boxes plus the several dozen filing cabinets plus 12 shelving units in 3.5 hours. From the point of arriving in Rantoul, packing everything on the truck, unpacking everything, and putting everything on the truck. 3.5 hours. So next time, if you move, I hope you don't move. But if you move,
Get to
we
it.
highly recommend it. So that also allowed us to, the estimate was essentially cut in half for what they initially said they would charge us. So, anyway.
Thank you. Any
Do you have
questions?
any questions?
I have a quick, the first one, so have you ever thought about maybe partnering with someone like WILL to get just snippets of the oral history for them to, you know, put together the program?
Without
so
it.
Okay, so you've
For
done.
with the League of Women Voters, and yes, I mean, I've worked with WLL and Camille Koenig in the past. Almost 10 years ago now, we worked on the youth media workshop, and we were partner in that, and the students spend time studying here. And so, yes, I think that is definitely an ongoing conversation, and certainly also Chanute.
Yes.
I'm hoping that, you know, the Chanute story, there are lots of opportunities. There are actually oral histories as part of the collection. Mark Hansen, who was a previous courier, actually conducted quite a few oral histories, and so is a part of the collection. And there are hundreds and hundreds of people in this community,
Yeah.
probably more, who have connections with Chanute. I mean, it doesn't matter where I bring Chanute up. They're like, oh yeah, my brother, father, grandfather, cousin, nephew, there's a connection. And so again, remember, over 2 million men and women were trained there. So it's a phenomenal number. So we're very proud. But now we have a lot of work to do. And we had a lot of help, you know, obviously from our staff, and the archive staff, the library staff. We will be able to hire an intern. The goal is in the spring semester. And because of the generosity of GISLIS, we'll also be able to offer a tuition waiver for that semester. So hopefully we'll have some nice candidates, and hopefully have students working on that project on an ongoing basis, because, and again, as I mentioned the last time, I would like to spend the next year inventorying the collection and really knowing what I have or what we have, and hopefully get into the federal grant cycle in June. So the NHPRC is a really good agency for large processing collection projects. So I'm starting my conversations with them. So.
Are you looking for people who worked up there as civilian employees?
Looking for them?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, anybody, we've gotten some calls already. People heard about it. I've also had discussions with, there is a board for the Chinook Museum and Foundation that still exists. I've been talking with them just informally as we pass each other up at Chinook as we're cleaning up those last final pieces. We're going up one more time. And I've also been talking kind of informally also with the Rantoul Historical Society, because I think it's really important for us to remember this is Rantoul's history, the county's history, but it's the whole community's history, but it's Rantoul's history. And it was Rantoul's great loss, Rantoul. So I'm very much interested in collaborating with organizations in Rantoul, in the Public Library, the Historical Society, and any other organization that is interested, that we may do some collaborative exhibits, bring material up to them, so they don't think that we, snatched up their history. And it was not because they had a choice. I mean, I think there was no social funding in the community in space to house this collection. So.
Thank you, Hanta, for all that you've done with this project. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the action items, consent agenda.
I move approval of the total consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, do I hear approval of the consent agenda, all the items listed with the affirmative?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Our first item of individual item for business is the annual review of the designation of non-resident card fees. And as you know, we've used the system that has been the tax base. It seems to me like that answers our questions much easier. So do I have a motion to approve that? Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, the next item is our election of officers. The nominating committee has asked that I continue, Mark, Beth, and Anna. Is there a motion to approve
It comes from the committee.
Comes from the committee? Okay, Anna.
Right?
I'll move to approve the officers nominated. Name them again? Maybe so.
And I second it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. List of scheduled monthly meetings as prescribed by law. It is in your packet. Is there a motion to approve the list of monthly meetings?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The prevailing wage resolution in your packet for labor. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mark moved it.
Sorry.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, budget amendment for 16 budget is the one we've been handed this evening. It's marked in yellow, the changes.
The one you were handed this evening was the fiscal 17. 16 was in your board packet.
It says June 4th, 16.
Well, they both have June 14th.
I have one that says agenda 9.5.
Agenda 9.5
Is this an earlier
And then
copy?
it's going to be fiscal 16.
Yeah, that's the one. So, yeah, it looks like this one.
It's the
Yeah,
long one
it's
or
vertical.
this one?
It's the,
And
It's a
this one-
vertical.
It's the
Portrait.
portrait.
Yeah.
This wasn't
The one we
subsequently
got in the
revised.
packet.
This came with the original package.
that came with the original packet, correct?
Yeah, so there wasn't any changes on it.
And I have one
Well, there
tiny
is.
request to modify that,
Okay,
to move $1,000 from adult CDs to adult DVDs.
I think we can probably manage that.
I had a question about the online host directory listing,
Yes.
adding $3,000 to 6,400. Is that one we've always used, or how does that work?
That is to modify the website. So we've moved money from one of the other funds to help pay for website updates. The online hosting is paying for the website maintenance, but the infusion of cash was paying for the updates.
Do you use that for that?
We do, we have it, yeah.
So it's not for listing and directories?
We also pay to be like in the yellow pages and white pages,
Okay.
and that, I believe, comes from that line as well, Kathy? Yes.
say again what the change was that
We
you
were
had.
gonna transfer when the adult budget within it, 1,000 from the music CD lines to adult DVDs.
Oh, music DVDs.
Correct.
Great. Okay. Are there any other questions as you saw them? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that's the 16 budget. Now, the 17, is that the one we had this evening that's updated?
Yes.
Yes. It's horizontal.
Correct. How does it easy to read all these
Landscape,
lines?
okay.
Landscape.
I'm sorry. I don't use your terms all the time.
It's a technical.
Yeah, I know. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, are there questions that you'd like to ask?
This is a very nice amendment.
Yes. Hallelujah.
Just one question. What was the $1 total capital
yeah,
expenses
that's-
before?
Is that
That-
placeholder?
What are
That
we
is
get-
just a placeholder.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Where were we going to spend it?
It's by a nail.
Well, we gotta make it, we need to make it last.
What's the HR
Building capital
transfer?
expenses of $1.
Just curious, that's all.
That is to fund a development
Oh, the
professional.
development person,
Mhm.
yeah, okay.
No other questions? All those in favor of the motion to amend the proposed budget for 17, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, we're going to have a discussion of the laws and administrative rules by Celeste. That's our educational program tonight.
So if you took a look in the information that Dawn and I provided you about the non-resident fees, there were some administrative rules which we attached. They're fairly straightforward as far as administrative rules go. I didn't know if you had any particular questions about that. We are limited by state law, or guided by state law, which says how we can run the library in certain ways. And so we only have 3 choices as to how we can determine what rates will be. You have just determined that, 1, you want to issue cards to non-residents, and that 2, you will do it in this particular manner. Also, one of the policies that you're going to be discussing in a moment, if you choose to, is patron confidentiality, which is called out in a couple places in the Local Libraries Act, as well as the Patron Confidentiality Act as well. So I didn't know if you had any particular questions. There, in the Local Libraries Act, it's basically a statement saying libraries need to follow the Patron Confidentiality Act, and then pointing you over to it. And it lists specific things that one should not do as a library employee, or as the library as an entity, so that we can keep people's information confidential. The policy that you have in front of you for confidentiality records is primarily the same. We pulled it out. We will evaluate that later, looking at the law, and libraries interpret the law in different ways as to how much information you keep confidential. So for example, is the fact that someone has a card at all the part that you keep confidential, or just what's on the record? Some libraries with their internal policies make that a stricter confidentiality requirement, and other libraries leave it at, you could tell someone that they had a card, but you could not say what was checked out on the card. So we will be evaluating what we think is most appropriate in our community and bring that to you for your recommendations.
As I recall, we have had the policy that we never kept the records of what they checked out. So are we now keeping that?
We only have in our part of the system what people have checked out at the moment.
At the moment?
At the
Okay.
moment. So
Not
right now, you
historical.
can see that I have X number of items checked out in this moment, and once I return them, they come off of my account. I also have, through the public side of Polaris, our online system, I have chosen to keep my reading history, but only I have access to that, or anyone I've given my password to has access to that. Library staff don't have access to that. So that's a choice that people can make.
Oh, so ordinary patrons can do it?
Yeah, if you want to, I can show you how.
Yeah, I would love to do it.
Yes, it's
You
great.
have Bad memory, and
Yes.
it's a great book I read. Of course, it's a little late for last year, but it's still.
Yeah, we can give you that,
Looking
actually.
forward, yeah, looking
But, you
forward.
know, so if you choose to do that, would that then be liable to the Patriot Act?
Yeah.
We don't have access to that as the library.
At the library, you don't, so
We
then,
don't
so if you,
have
so that would just exonerate the library from having to turn over records that they have no control of. But I'm trying to think individual patrons, then that would be a whole different legal system yeah. So the Patriot Act could not require me, if I choose to keep my logs, I'm trying to think what the mechanism would be, because the Patriot Act refers to libraries in a specific manner that could not then probably refer to an individual. It's actually an interesting nuance. All right. Right, I think I've answered my own question.
Okay, good.
I guess I'm not completely clear on how the individual can make that, can search it, but the system cannot.
It's through, there's a staff side, there's a back end to the Polaris system that we have access to with our particular staff logins. On the public side, you can choose to create your own account so you can log in through the website. And
It
where you
doesn't
click-
exist unless you choose to.
You have to create
Okay,
it,
okay.
and then you have to create your account, and then you also have to say, I want to keep my reading history, which you can turn off at any point in time as well. You can stop it. It's handy to have, like, yeah, what was that thing I was reading?
Yeah.
Or what did I check out and return right away because I knew I didn't have time?
Yeah, exactly.
But if we haven't done it to date, it will not bring up what we read 5 years ago.
Because that has not been kept. The system
Okay,
doesn't.
That's what
That's
I was
interesting.
thought.
So if a law enforcement official comes here with a properly noted warrant for a judge, it says, give me Chris Shearer's record of reading,
Mhm.
we cannot reconstruct that in any way.
That is correct. We
And a
can
system
say
administrator
what
can't
Chris
get
Steer
that.
has out right now, but we couldn't say he returned this thing 3 weeks ago or something. We don't have access to that information.
Are we on the right side of the law?
Mhm. We don't have the records.
Well,
I think we are.
the law tells us that we have to keep patron records confidential. That's what the state law says.
But we're not keeping them at all. There's keeping them confidential, and there's not just letting them go into the ether.
We are not required to keep people's logs,
Okay.
and we are required to keep them private, again, except in those particular legal circumstances. And it's only then what we have checked out at that moment.
Mhm.
Just want to be sure I'm clear.
Now, are you looking for direction from us whether we want to continue that policy as that we're not keeping record or not?
We don't control that. The computer systems
The computer system
generally
doesn't.
don't keep that information because generally library patron records of what has been checked out aren't kept by libraries because of patron confidentiality issues. If you look at ALA's statements about privacy, what you check out as a library patron, generally speaking, we want to keep that private for you so you can check out whatever those books are, whether you don't want people to know you're reading these lovely physics texts or trashy romances or books on divorce, whatever it is, it's your private business at the public library. So systems don't tend to do that. One particular instance in which libraries do keep patron records is when you work with the patrons that use the library for the blind service. And they say that it's okay for you to do that for them because frequently you are doing recommendations for people, or the computer is actually pulling a list of recommendations and it compares against what you've already had, so it doesn't keep pulling the same books for you. But that is built into the system, particularly for the group of Library for the Blind patrons. And we don't have that here, but they do have that at the state in Springfield. And so that is an instance in a public library situation where records are kept and patrons are notified of that when they start using the service.
Our blind patrons told of that?
When they sign up through the service with
Okay.
the state library,
Okay.
that's part of their
Yeah, yeah.
orientation. It should be if it isn't, but yeah, I believe that is the case. When I worked in Ann Arbor, that was part of the orientation process.
Are there other questions in this area? Jeff? did you-
No, I was just wondering if Amazon keeps records of the books that you
They are.
buy, look at. They are always telling you what you might be interested in.
It's hard to imagine them voluntarily just
And
giving
what
it
you should
away.
wear when you wear
Right.
read the next book.
That might be one reason libraries aren't targeted as much by the National Security Act, because it's so easy to get everything else that you do online.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't have to go after the library records anymore.
Yep.
Okay, we have before us thank you, Celeste. We have before us the circulation and interlibrary loan policy. Are there questions at this time?
Yes.
It will be before.
I'd like
Yes,
to
Anna?
say something. Several months ago, I told Celeste, the circulation policy is a mess. Can I take a stab at it? Thank goodness, she said, don't. We have staff who are going to do it. I want to thank you for doing a masterful job. It is really terrific.
How many pages did it start at?
20 down to 9. 20 down to 9. It's just amazing. It really is. I found a couple of editorial things, which I will give you. There's no point in talking about it. But I do have one question, and I apologize. I may be just misunderstanding the sentence, but on page 2, just above number 2, that last sentence, however, the library will honor the non-resident cards until expiration. Is that sentence there because somebody might move to, say, Paxton and could still drive here to use? Down at the bottom here. Page 2 at the bottom.
children's cards.
Oh, okay.
Okay, however, do you see the sentence that starts with however?
Yes.
Page 2?
Yes.
However, the library will honor the non-resident cards until expiration.
Right, because they've paid for them.
They've
so-
paid for it, but
They can't get
Why-
refunds and they
they can't
can't
get
transfer
refunds.
them. But they can.
how could they continue to use it if they're not,
If they're,
if they might move to Paxton, that's
Right.
and
yeah,
that
somewhere
would be
where they
it.
can still get to the.
That was the
law
only
library.
way it made any sense to me, am I correct?
Yeah, that part of the text precedes me. I
Okay.
believe that's that's how I have always interpreted it.
Okay.
If they were still in a location where they could get
Where
back.
they could use it, okay. Otherwise, I was going to say, why don't we just strike
The
that?
other thing too, I mean, that's relevant now is somebody who had paid and moved away could still use the online resources. They could still log in and use ebooks or something.
Okay, very good, you answered the question, thank you. And thanks again. And here is, it's
And if you're thinking of
Thank you
moving,
very
be sure
much.
to tell your library, if you're thinking of moving, be sure to renew your non-resident card before you move. And you have an extra year.
To promote that.
Are there other questions? Thank you, Don and Anna. We'll have a vote on that at next meeting. The confidentiality of record policies. It was fine print.
which I take it we'll be looking at.
Yeah, you can look at it this week,
Carefully,
or meaning
yeah.
this next month.
Right.
And see, but I don't think there's any, I didn't question anything particularly, except to remove the president and put the board of directors, and I thought, why was the president ever consulted? That would not make sense. Okay. Report of liaison groups. Friends?
We'll meet again in August.
August. Okay. Foundation.
June 22nd is the next meeting.
22nd is the annual meeting. We're taking in 4
Don't put me on the spot, I don't remember.
new board members.
I think that was,
Yeah. Yeah.
And we will be requesting of the foundation funding for a development person in the library as well. They said they were welcome to that conversation, but they just had a quorum last month and didn't want to move the conversation on until more people were there to have it. But they were welcoming that. They are the group that actually said, we should have the library hire someone to do development work for the library and the foundation. So that will be one of the topics on the agenda.
And what's your succession planning for Larry?
Bob Switzer will be the new president.
Oh, nice.
And he only has 1 year left on his term, so we are looking for a candidate of other people, new member or a current member, to take on for next year as well. That following year.
I'm very pleased that Bob wanted to step up, I think, so that's good. Any other questions? The Heartland Library System, Jeff, anything new?
Things are pretty dismal. We spend all of our time on these subcommittees refining the severance policy, the elimination of position policy. A number of people have been terminated. People are going. They're not hiring anyone. They just heard the other day, I don't know if it's public now, that Ann Craig is leaving the state library, which may have nothing to do with this, but she's been sort of the bulwark, and it'll be okay and we'll get there, but she's been there 27 years, so I think things are different than historical circumstances and whatnot. So we just spent a lot of time thinking about ways to save money. They have 3 facilities. They just got a contract. The rail system up north got the contract to deliver all the academic books for Carly, and Heartland got the bid to, or subcontracted to do the delivery, so they've got an infusion of that, but I don't know, just hoping for the best.
If I may interject, Ann is coming to the university to lead up Carly as
Carly,
the
yeah,
director.
yeah.
So that's good news for us to have her in our community. Great lady.
Okay. Celeste, do you have anything in addition for the administrative report?
I've got all kinds of great stuff. So here are things that didn't make the director's report that you want to know about. Anka mentioned that we have a new relationship with the library school, in that in the past, with our internship program, we have graduate student assistants. And the library would take on so many practicum students across the library as a whole, and they would pool those credits and then would give our children's services Okay, so we would pool those credits across the library, and then the student who worked in children's services would get free classes at the library school, which was really great. So having had a number of conversations with them, because we had to have so many practicum students at a time to make it worth their while to give free classes, and they've reevaluated how they're looking at practicum students and their GSA credits. The library school is now giving us one student each semester, spring, summer, fall, whatever the winter, whatever it's called here. They will give us that for a student in any of the departments. And we don't have to count up the practicum credits. So that means that staff who take on mentoring a practicum student, which is 100 hours a semester, staff now will receive the benefit of themselves being able to take a class at the library school and be able to do their own professional continuing education if they're so interested. And they have a year. And it is not just in the library school, it's across the university with some exceptions. So we are thrilled at the generosity of the library school and our long-term relationship with them, that they have created a new situation for us. This is going to be really great. And so this semester, the internship with the GSA is going to a staff person that's working in the adult part of adult and youth services. And then next semester, it will be for the person who is an intern, it would be a GSA in the archives. And then we will see in the summer if that will go back to a children's person or not, but we have the flexibility of offering that to different students in the different departments. And a semester free tuition is a very generous thing to be able to offer. So thanks to Guslis, Assist for
So
that.
it's just a small interjection, it's just very tangential, but kind of relative to this. So today is the last day the Grad School of Library and Information Science is going to have that name. Starting tomorrow, the name is now officially changed to the School of Information Science. The website is going to be changed to ischool.illinois.edu. And so everything's going to, and then they're going to refer to themselves for short as IS. So that announcement just was put out to the university community either this morning or yesterday evening. So you should have asked Martin whether they had a proper send-off for Guslis. And now it's going to be, well, I think they want to say IS rather than IS. Or is.
Yeah.
Sis, the
Depends on
School
what
of
the meaning
Information
is.
Sciences.
Yeah.
So just kind of an FYI.
We'll be updating our website now that that's happening too, because we have something on our website, employment, about the relationship we have. So the students who are interested can see there are internships, there are practicum opportunities, they can volunteer, they can be a paid intern. We have a number of ways that we interact with students to their benefit and to the benefit of our public as well.
When we put the new name up, could I suggest we continue to use the old one in parentheses for a while? Readers of the website aren't going to know what is.
I mean, for Guslis?
Is,
Yeah.
paren, formerly Guslis, or Graduate School of Library and Information Science.
NEE.
Oh,
That works too. So I accept that
Should we
friendly
consider
amendment.
changing the name of the library?
just the school.
The Urbana Free Information Source or something?
I've always said the word free should be dropped.
Yeah.
Actually, that seems kind of cool.
Next.
Next, so I did mention that the library has started offering an employee assistance program that started June 1st. It is a really great benefit. The city has offered it to city staff, but they use a different company. But they have offered that as the benefit for a while, and we're very pleased to offer that here, and staff seemed pleased to have it as an option. Not only is it counseling kinds of services for the person, it's for their family, but there's also some legal consultation and tax assistance as well. So it's a very nice package at a very good price, and we are thankful to have the funds to be able to offer that nice benefit to our staff. I have been talking with Mark and other people about the development professional, and everyone is giving lots of good advice. Of course, some of it conflicts with each other. I'm following up on loose ends, and we'll have more information next month, but the good news is that the money is, at least $30,000 has been allocated by the city to move ahead in hiring a person. So we're taking good steps.
Yeah, briefly, what's the last thing I did? We met with a person who's a retired fundraiser, a development person at the University of Illinois, who's really enthusiastic about it. Kind of help us figure out how you hire somebody with a development background when you don't have a development background. So, kind of learn how to structure the job, how to evaluate candidates, and so forth. So, if you want one advisor, probably many.
And we worked with the city. Sanford House was very helpful when we were interviewing for the IT manager position, which we hired MC Neal for. But Kathy and I are not IT professionals, and we are thankful for the help that Sanford provided us as well. So it's good to have resources in the community. You know, people love this library. They want us to succeed, and we are thankful for their support in many ways. And again, in hiring people that we don't have the background for, that people are volunteering their time to help bring us up to speed, we very much appreciate that.
Celeste, what's your time frame? Hopefully.
Well, I'm hopeful that by the next month, we have a very strong job description already based on the Champaign Public Library's description. We have similar needs, similar communities. There's some tweaks, I think, but I think that by next month, I feel confident that I've had enough conversations to know the points that we need to be addressing and to start moving ahead with posting a position and having people who are willing and able to help us with the interview process. What were you going to say?
Do you have kind of an informal search committee then that you've been conferencing with? I mean, I'm trying. Do you want a search committee? Do you want suggestions of people that have development experience that would form kind of a search committee, or you just want, what is the process? And do you want any more help?
If you have people you think would be willing to talk with me about things we need to look at, that would be great.
Okay, so
But
you plan on doing the work yourself, the hiring and
yes, we would do
figuring out
that.
what you need to, okay.
We expect the person would not be a civil service employee because the person would be at some type of management level position, so it doesn't fall within the guidelines of civil service. So we would have a normal interview process here as we would for other people in similar positions. But if you, again, if you know of people who could either instruct on the process or might be willing to be on an interview committee, I would like to have an outside person whose opinion we trust help us with the process.
So I'm confused. So I thought originally there was an idea. I know it was like kind of quick because the city might give us money to help us. But have we ever really talked about this? I mean, I know you did a presentation one night a little bit, but I thought maybe I missed that meeting or something?
Yeah, we did talk about it, and we as a board said, yes,
Okay.
let's keep moving forward with this. We thought it was a good idea.
There was
We
some-
argued both sides, actually.
When the city council got the proposal, there were some questions about it, but I think people were pretty agreeable. I don't know if we actually, we approved the budget for it, but I don't think there was any.
I missed one meeting, sorry, it must have been
I
that.
missed April's.
Is the current plan to have a completely separate development person or maybe a staff member part-time?
One thing that we're really looking at right now is, of course, the needs of the library and to get the best possible pool. So do we need a full-time person? Maybe. Do we want someone at least 20 hours a week so that the person could be benefited? We do need someone at least 20 hours a week. So how do you, part of the conversation I'm having with people is how do you lay out a job description that says part-time through full-time without turning off either people who want to be part-time or who want to be full-time? How do you say that correctly? And that's part of what we're talking about, because if someone wants to work 35 hours a week, we would want them to apply. And if someone wants to work 20 hours a week, I think we could still do that. I think we have enough work for a 40-hour-week person as well, but I don't want to rule out a candidate in that spectrum.
But if you say flexible,
That is a word that came up today in a conversation, yes. So what would be the industry words, though, to use? Flexible, if that's, so some of the more nitty-gritty kinds of things, but I believe that there is a need and it will allow the library to move ahead in a futuristic way to help us raise funds now for things we know are coming, such as the capital expenses, but to allow us to create more giving opportunities that we know people actually want to have. And we, the staff, don't have the capacity to do this. It could be certainly that current staff could be trained, and it could be that if we hire someone, they could help train others of us to do more of this kind of work as well. But we don't have the professional expertise on staff to really start this from scratch again, given the information we have from the work that was done in the early 2000s, creating the database and looking at the spectrum of the options we created.
Would the job description have in it the expectations as to the level of their abilities? I mean, in terms of bringing in. I mean, one of the things we've talked about is there are development officers at the university who never pay their salary. And I would like to see something in the job, I don't know if it's job description or what, that by the period of time, we've had commitments from the foundation and from the city council for a 2-year period. And after that time, I would want them to at least be bringing in sufficient funds to be paying for that position.
Well, let me be clear, the city council is a 1-year budget and they've committed for a year.
A
So
year, okay, I'm
City
sorry.
council is committed, they do a year budget, so they're
Yeah.
committed for a year,
Yeah.
and we would certainly ask for a second year if that is appropriate.
Yeah, but is there any way to incorporate into the job description? I don't know,
It
that's,
doesn't sound like that's going in the job description, that's
Do you
part of
see
the
any-
conversations
Well,
one
what
has.
my thinking was, and this is just, it's not on paper, is that we want to go out and talk to people who've been working in the field, who are willing to help advise us and guide us. And the real key is avoiding that person in the hiring process. We're obviously going to be looking at somebody younger with less of a track record, but, and it will be a training ground for fundraisers.
yes.
Well, you're looking, you're tilting your
Making
head.
faces, I'm thinking, well, I'm not ruling out anyone with experience, though.
Oh, I'm not either.
Actually, I'm not wedded to a young person
Could be a
with
retired person that wants to work part-time that's really good at what they do, and that would be great.
Yeah.
Right, or it could be a person who leaving another position to come here to be here full-time. We want the broadest pool possible of very qualified candidates.
But I've seen, for years, I've seen development people at the university start off in small departments, go to bigger departments, move to the college, move to the foundation central office. And some of them move out, some of them move out. Rarely do you see somebody in the same small unit for 2-3 years.
I'd like to pick up on something that Chris was saying. A lot of people talk about development people need to earn their salaries. That's not uncommon. A problem with that, and I have subscribed to that myself, but a problem with that is that many development people don't even live long enough to see the fruits of what they have sown. Development is a long-term thing. Now, there are some immediate needs that you could ask for in the original contract, but to demand something along the lines of big bucks for a long period of time, I think is unrealistic. It's a very tricky thing, and we need to be careful.
Yeah, there's prospecting.
Because we have immediate needs, but we also have long-term. And a good development person will work on both of those levels, and that's extremely important.
Jeff? So some of us who are married to development people know all of the ridiculous, terrible things that go on that people don't earn their salary and just play golf and do also. I mean, it happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
And this track to the foundation isn't necessarily going up. Many times it's going down to the foundation. So I guess we're knowledgeable about what a shadowy area this development thing is. So that's why I'm concerned. I just, it's very important to get somebody that appreciates the intimacy of this place and doesn't have
Grandiose.
These are all reasons why I suggested that we meet with some people out in the field or who've been there and who know it, who can help us avoid those pitfalls, if possible. There's no guarantees.
Well, look at Joan Hood, the main library. I mean, she was like all over the place, but she appreciated this place. I mean, to get somebody with that kind of dedication, that's the secret.
I think part of the things we ought to think about too is, I think someone local with local connections is going to be more successful, probably. I suppose a real professional could come in, set up a database and figure out the stuff you need to know about the local donors. But a local professional that has lived here for 20 or 30 years is going to have a much better idea of both the target donors and who has the potential to give, and what organizations to go to. It just seems like it's really kind of a whole different ballpark than when you're talking about like an alumni development person who's going through databases of hundreds of thousands of people and doing analysis and cross-referencing magazine subscriptions and stuff to come up with a donor list. I don't see our problem being the same as that.
It's all about relationship building.
Yeah.
So that's the long-term part, and even a little bit of the short-term part. So someone who has been in the community for a while, a good person will already have a good start on the relationships. And if you have someone completely new, it takes a while to establish relationships, and it's a different level. So if we could have an ideal candidate, it would be someone who's been in the community, who has a good start on the relationships, or maybe a very firm roots in the community and has the relationships that they can then build upon from there.
And a good background in development somewhere else too.
One thing that we see in the Champaign job description that Donna Pittman currently does is, in addition to doing development, she also does grant writing. So it's a broader position than just development, but that's what the title is. So, and she does a lot of writing. She said that some of the things she does is being a part of the library for many years, 27 years. I could be wrong, but more than 20 years in the library there, that she knows the library and is able to say, we don't do these things because in part we don't have funds for them. And then talking to the department heads and saying, what if I approach some people? Would this idea, would this new service be interesting? So she helps drive some of the services in finding donors who would like to support the library in particular ways.
Very important.
So in addition to needs that we already know that they have, she or he would help develop things in the context of the job and then grant writing. So looking for funds in a number of different ways.
I think this is a great thing to do. This is a great time to start. I mean, if we can sit around here thinking that maybe next year the city will have more property tax revenue, that they can give us more, but the reality is we just need to look at rowing our own boat here. And
We got roads to fix.
Celeste has told me that she would provide us, if you want, would provide us a list of the items, the kinds of things that she would ask this person to do. It would not be the job description as such. Is that right?
Right, and those are the kinds of things we're talking about. So as far as, let's say, golf trips, this person in their first year is really going to have a lot of building from the ground up again, looking at what we did in the past, creating a new donor database, making lots of calls, developing things like planned giving. There are a lot of tangible things that may not be, you must raise this much money, but there are a lot of building the system from the ground up and setting up a structure that will be very clear what the work is this person is doing, especially in the first year, I would expect. So there'll be a lot of tangible things that we'll see right away.
Okay. Any other questions? Celeste, you've got more points.
That is it, except,
that's
just one more, sorry, so that is it, but, so the campus plan, Bill and Jane graciously agreed to be on the team of people working on that. Barb Meyer and Mike Munson on the foundation, Mike also being at the city, have volunteered to be on it. I've talked with Libby and she gave me we went through some really great next step kinds of things, how the process could look. She is choosing a staff member to be on the team as well, and I'm reaching out to Public Works because it makes sense to have a Public Works person involved. And when I get those last couple of people lined up, then we will meet as a group. But that has been on the back burner a little bit, and just want to let you all know where that stood, that we've got some ways to move ahead. And looking at our campus block plan that was developed back in 2013 as an update to the 2004 plan. So that will start moving again. As far as long-range planning for the library goes, that is poised to start moving ahead. That's all I have for right
Okay.
now.
Unfinished business.
Wait, administrative reports, we might have one other?
Anybody from the rest of the staff, I'm sorry. Yes, Kathy does, okay. I'm sorry.
Celeste and I did receive from Henneman Engineering the report, their initial evaluation of the HVAC system. We got that Friday afternoon, and Celeste and I haven't had time to sit down and talk about it. But it is our hope that they will be coming to do their presentation next month in July. Also about Henneman, we are meeting, Celeste and I are meeting with a representative of the city with a structural engineer from Henneman to talk about the porch. This is our first meeting that will lead into a discussion about doing an evaluation of the structure. So that is tomorrow morning that we're having that initial meeting. Responding to Bill's question last month about the Weber property, I have an update on that one. Unfortunately, the person who was interested in renting the final unit, that fell through. But they have a couple of other nibbles. So I don't know much about that, but I can also tell you is that I found out the response to the question that you had about their HVAC their proposal for replacing the furnace, is that also included the air conditioner. And you had asked the question, is it necessary to do the air conditioner? So I proposed that to the Weiner Companies, who is our property manager of the Weber property. And they said, well, there's a variety of reasons, but what it boiled down to was that I said, well, did you ask them to add the air conditioner, or is there actually something wrong with the air conditioner that needs to be replaced as well? And he said, well, it's a variety of things. He said, the major thing is, and I think I said this last month, is that they're replacing two furnaces with one. Because of the way that the building is configured, at one time it was 2 units instead of 1, and so we no longer need 2 furnaces. But because there's 2 air conditioners, you can't have 2 air conditioners and 1 furnace. That does not work. And they said also you could make it work, but in order to make that work, the money you would be saving by not installing the air conditioner would be spent on trying to configure it so that it worked together. Also is that these are 20-year-old air conditioners, and they said probably you would be continuously maintaining those, so you wouldn't really have any cost savings on that. So that was the answer to that question.
And I guess the answer to the question, when do we need it, when it's 90 degrees out? Pretty easy, too.
And we've asked in their report to give us the alternatives, or what, is that part of it? Yeah, and that was not a part of the initial.
You're talking about the HVAC, the
Yeah,
HVAC?
yeah.
Well, at first glance, there were some things that Celeste and I thought they were going to give us this, like alternatives, like instead of, replacing this, can we fix it, or something like that. So we're gonna, that's the thing we need to do, is we need to compare it with the initial proposal, the discussion that we had with them, so,
Okay.
to make sure that we're getting everything we need. It wasn't a complete report, they did not include the temperature
That's-
controls, and they did tell us that. So,
Okay.
we're waiting for it more, but we're hoping to get them here next month to do their report to the board.
Okay. Other questions of Kathy? Okay. Okay, for unfinished business, if the administrative group is done, I've asked Bill to continue on as the Open Meetings Act representative, and he has agreed to that. And I think I've got agreement from Celeste and Rebecca to do the FOIA. They get hit with it, whether we don't see it, they see it, so they're going to do that. Okay. Do I have a motion that we go into closed session?
So moved.
Is there a second? Roll call?
We should just say,
Yeah, you just said.
I move that we go into closed section pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C1, discussion of performance of personnel, and 5 ILCS 120/2C21, discussion of closed session minutes of May 10th, 2016.
Second.
Deliver.
Now,
Okay. Jane?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
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 Mark? Yes.
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.